use of respect. Not to say that it's the truth, mind you, but to say that it's a good perspective. And because we got those human superpowers, one of them called imagination, we can step into that and kind of dream about what that might be like. And that in itself gives us an opportunity to be creative and to think about the potential that's out there. In terms of the mob violence and some of the stuff that's going on, like I said earlier, Andre, I consider that more or less a gaslight tactic, but I'm not saying I'm right. Okay, the mob people are tearing up stuff. I look at it as a system that is dying and opening space for a new system to emerge. That's how I see it. I say in all systems, they have cycles. All systems have cycles. They have life cycles, and the life cycle consists of a birth and a death. There's no evidence where there's no evidence that shows that it seems like that always happens. That always happens. There's a birth and then there's a death. And during that process, some people call it transformation, which is what we're going to talk about today. It's chaotic, it's uncertain, it's violent. Those are the people that are on the call that experience childbirth know it. Their whole body is being violated. And it's violence in the whole interaction of bringing a life into the world. There's a lot of violence, you can say, that is part of that. People cussing, people are mad, people are screaming, there's blood everywhere, It's a metaphor. That's how it happens. And what we've been talking about over the last 4 weeks is just a tool to help us navigate in that and take advantage of it for our own joy, for our own benefit. And we introduced 4 weeks ago this concept that we've coined as the 4S Committee, which consists of struggle, sacrifice, suffering, and surrender. We're going to talk a little bit about surrender today. That's our intent. Before I get into surrender, I do want to get the people on that are in the audience to consider these 4 S's, because they have other words, so they can kind of know where are you in this process. Okay, so the first one is struggle, another word in which you can associate with struggle. And as I told you guys on lesson 1, I try to use acronyms so I can remember all this crap. I mean, I'm old. I just can't remember stuff anymore. Okay, but part of struggle is attachment. We have these attachments that we have in life: a car, a person, a job. We have these attachments, and these are beneficial. They're part of our growth. They're part of our progress. So in the struggle phase, it's important to just be able to recognize there's going to be a certain amount of attachment. There's going to be an appetite toward more. That's important, because in our lives we want a certain level of achievement. So the struggle part is important. The struggle part, as we talked about a week or so later, is about sacrifice. That's where you start to go under. That's when you start to, it becomes more of a pathology, because you have to come out of it. You got to struggle. If you don't identify, you just stay in that struggle. And some people will stay in it for not only a month, they may stay in it for the rest of their lives and never receive the type of joy that they may have available for them. But if you can get through the sacrifice where you can let go, I like to equate sacrifice is the beginning of a death cycle. Something in you, your perspective, how you see things, your ego has to be emptied, let go of, killed off, because it doesn't serve you anymore. Santa Claus is not coming to town. There's not 12 reindeers that go out on Christmas Eve and deliver gifts. There's something else. And to give up your mindset, I mean, for humans, that's hard to do. I mean, humans want to be right. I mean, that's part of how we're designed. We need to be right. And when you start dipping in the sacrifice, that gets questioned and starts to crumble. Because you have to give up your rightness. You have to give up that appetite.
Well, that's one thing that I would say that I'm sacrificing that, because I mean at this point, and this is just me, and you know, yeah. I'm sure that a lot of different people have different views on it.
Yes.
But I just have a difficult time with this whole mass thing. Like, I mean, it's like, to me, it's like we live in a country together. You know what I'm saying? Nobody is independent from anybody else, right? You know, we all depend on each other to, you know, feed ourselves, to live. Like, I didn't build my own house. I don't bring electricity into my house. I don't do anything by myself. I depend on individuals who know a little bit of something. Maybe 100 individuals I depend on to live my day-to-day life. And without those 100 individuals, I wouldn't be able to live the life that I'm currently living. But however, we're operating in a system is just like, well, you know, it's all about me. It's all about what I want. So I'm not gonna wear a mask, or I want I'm not gonna give any concessions to this side or that side. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's just like, man, like how do we do that? Like, I was having this conversation, but I mean, before you go on, I was having this conversation about God and religion, and about how this individual believes that, you know, Christianity is it. This is the truth, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, okay, well, I mean, I can jump on that as far as what I think, but what about somebody sitting in China? You know what I'm saying? In their world, halfway around the world, they may not subscribe to that. You know what I'm saying? So in my mind, do I see that person as wrong, or do I see this person as different? Do I see this person, do I just dismiss this person? Should I not even talk to that person because they already don't have my mindset connected with their mindset? So, I mean, so just like, but it seems like the people that I talk to, that I talk with, they want to automatically dismiss that person and pretend like that person doesn't exist, or their mindset doesn't exist. I have a big problem with that. Not that, huh?
Why do you have let me give you an example. Okay, I'm riding my bike this morning. Okay, and I had coffee. And I was riding my bike. And I had to go to the bathroom. Okay. And so, you know, I'm out in the street and I have to go to the bathroom. I says, well, it's going to take me a long time to get home. It was very annoying. It was very inconvenient to be human. Okay. At that time. And what you're suggesting is just naturally being human. You know, of course, people want to be right. And so you just have to just understand that and give them space so they can be right. That's a conversation. Like you were talking about the people in China, what if? That's not the conversation. Can you get into a conversation with another individual and suspend your own thought process and become part of theirs? That's called empathy, by the way. That's what that's called. And as we know, and I think we talked about this in week 2, the empathy in America dropped substantially at the turn of the century, like 30%. Okay, so I mean, so it's not as a sociologist, as a person that kind of is just in this stuff. Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. I got it. And it's not. Is it helpful for me to argue with them about their worldview? How is that helpful to anybody? Who am I trying to convince? Me? It's not helpful. But what is helpful in a love conversation is that, can I connect with this individual? Because if I connect with this individual, maybe I can influence them. Maybe not. Maybe they can influence me. Wow. Maybe Santa Claus is coming to town. Maybe there is the 12 reindeer. Okay? Do I have enough security in my own thought process to be open for something that, right now I just don't understand?
Yeah. But I think the way you explained it, I agree with you 100%. But at the same time, I think that's a difficult proposition. I mean, yeah. If you connect yourself to that emotionally, I mean, if somebody came up to you and said, "Hey, I believe that I should be able to, molest your daughter or rape your daughter," I mean, that's gonna be a hard thing to have empathy for. It's gonna be a hard thing to connect to.
Well, okay. So my daughter. I'll use my daughter as a lightning rod here, and just listen to the energy in the conversation. If someone did tell me that, of course, my ego is going to go on the defensive, and I may cut your throat. As a result, my ego is designed to do that. My ego is designed to kill you. Right. If you threaten my reality. So, I realize that. It's like me going to get my gun out of the safe. I realize what I'm doing. I'm awake, which is what we're trying to teach with LTBA. But let me use Brittany as an example. She probably cussed me out and blast me on Facebook, but I'm going to use it anyway. When Brittany was 12, we have all these boys in our house anyway. You know that. I mean, all this, and I was the Pharaoh Gerald type of person over the boys. And Brittany, as you guys have told me on a number of occasions, could do whatever she wanted to do. And I remember she was 12 and we were talking in the living room, and Brittany came up to me and says, "Dad, you know what? You're a hypocrite." Now, I'm gonna tell you, I remember that like yesterday, and I was in shock and I was pissed. You what? You called me what? A hypocrite? And she's 12. I mean, I could feel the anger. I put all this energy in the conversation now. All egocentric, by the way. I mean, I understand it now, but I was, and I had to bring myself down and think about it. It took me a month, because in those days, that's how fast my mind said, I'm gonna get her. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I'm gonna get her. She's gonna be on some kind of punishment. You don't talk to your dad like that, which is a different conversation. Notice how the conversation changes when somebody attacks you. It was a different conversation, but that's a conversation. I'm gonna get you. You don't talk to your father like that. That's not what she was talking about, my hypocrisy. And I didn't want to talk about that because I didn't want to see that, right? I didn't want to see that. Okay, that was, to me, that was, you don't talk to your dad like that. And as the time went on, I said, you know what? She was right. She was absolutely, I was hypocrite. I started to list all the hypocritical things that I was doing. What that did for me, surrender, which is what we're talking about, it released me to a bigger place. I disarmed being called a hypocrite. So I'm a hypocrite. Okay. Sorry. Like I'm black. Sorry, you don't like that. I'm doing the best I can. Okay. That's that acceptance, which is part of the surrender thing. It takes energy away from the conversation. Now, I mean, I don't want to be prescriptive in this. That takes years and years of work, which is what we're trying to do with LTBA. This is not something that we're going to get off this call and this is what's going to happen. No. You're going to go to the gym of life and do the work. And you're going to fail a lot. Yeah. Until you get a bit better. You may get 5% better. But isn't 5% better in communicating with someone you love better than leaving it as it is?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean,
I think it's important. I also think it's important to recognize what your value system is. You know what I'm saying? Because there's a lot of values out there, and what I'm learning is that you can't. I mean, there's hundreds of values out there that you can have, and a lot of those 100 values could be good, right? But you can't have 100 values because essentially, if you have 100 values, you have no values because you can't focus on 100 things at one time. And so when you bring up your example of what you said with my sister, your daughter, with Brittany, to me, your response is connected to your value system. It's almost a part of your personality.
yeah, right.
Versus other people, they may have other values that they're connected to. They can still get to the same place that you're at,
Well,
but it's going to take them a slightly different process based on their value system.
yeah, you're absolutely correct. And I'm not trying to, like I said, I hesitate on being prescriptive because this is me, and I'm not like anybody else, and nobody else is like me. Right. And so the nuances to that is wide and varied to get there. I'm just saying that you're going to do some type of work on you. I call it the mirror ministry. You're going to look in the mirror a lot, okay? Because that's where the problem is at, is you. Okay, that's what Socrates said. It's not out there. It wasn't Brittany. I was the problem, and I didn't want to look in the mirror and check it out. Okay, so I'm not saying that as a prescription, go ahead and try that. Okay, right. I'm saying that worked for me. Some of it might work, and it may not work for you at all, and I'm good with that.
Right.
There's other ways in which you can experience going through this process to get to this so-called surrender process. Part of the surrender process is there's some sub-processes in struggle, sacrifice, and suffering, which is almost like a death or a grief process of letting that go, coming to terms with that, and accepting that.
Right. Let me harrow you in a little bit, or reel you in a little bit about this whole surrender thing. Can you in a few sentences explain to me what is the how do you know that you are in surrender? You know, what is the main?
Okay, so that's great. That's great. The main thing is acceptance. Period. The sun came out, and I accepted it, and I received it. That's it. Until you get there, you're going the other way. You're gonna suffer. There's probably some things that you're not gonna let go of, and you're gonna stay in struggle. Mm-hmm. It's an acceptance. Mm-hmm. That's why I like to use the term death, because death is so final, and there's just nothing you can do about it.
Right.
You can't pray your way out of it. You can't talk your way out of it. You can't buy your way out of it. It just is. Okay. And it's an ending and a beginning, which is why I like both parts. I like to be able to navigate in what's being let go of, because you have to let go. And I'm a very sentimental person. It's hard for me to let go of people, and so it is painful. It is a painful process. But the miracle is, as I've gone through that pain, I found that I got better on the other end. Wow. It's like me going to the gym. Okay? I got better. I got more open. Became more vulnerable. My relationships became deeper.
Right.
You know, and it wouldn't have happened unless I went through some, I'll call it pain. I'll call it suffering along the way, because it was building my character up. It was testing those values that you were speaking of.
Right. Can you give me an example of a time where you had to surrender something, and you had to go through the other S's? You know, you had to struggle. You know, you had to do sacrifice, do all these things, and then you got to the point where you're able to let go, surrender, and then and what got better in particular?
Okay, so what comes to mind right away, because I'm doing this interview with this journalist on my travels or my journey as a transplant recipient. Okay. So I'm just going to use that journey as part of it. As a lot of, I worked in banking for years, and some would say I was somewhat successful, had hundreds of people that I was responsible for, and worked my way up from a very entry level job. And then at 32, okay, you were like 2 or 3, okay, I lost all my sight. Okay, that was in a physical thing. I mean, I not only lost my sight physically, I lost it spiritually, which was even more devastating. I was a wreck. Okay, because I had so much appetite and for power and prestige. I mean, the appetite was gross. And so life had to happen. And now all of a sudden, I'm dependent on everybody. Had no sight. Okay, for 6 months. You were talking about, we live in an interdependent reality. I think that we do, but there's this cognitive dissonance that says that we know that, but we operate as if we don't know it. So we might as well say we don't know that. If you start talking to people, it's always about them. It's always, they don't realize that, we live in an interdependent reality. We have to be collective. Now we can take it too far and become communists, whatever we want to call it. We can take anything too far. Okay. But there's a point where, we have to come together. Lincoln said it, house divided is going to fall. Okay. Got it. So I'm in this process. Okay, and for whatever reason, when I came out of it, my vision improved 200%. That wasn't expected. Now, for me, and as I was telling Kathy in this interview, it says, look, my life changed physically and spiritually because of that, because I started to see things not only in a physical way, but in a spiritual way, a mental way. And I remember coming to my boss and saying, like, look, I would like to do something different. My whole world was upside down, and help the bank learn about quality and customer service. Everybody around me said that was a no-starter. It was wrong. You got a great career here. Everybody was in love with you. Why would you want to give up your career to be an individual contributor and you have no people reporting to it? And you were responsible, this black guy, back in the 80s, you were responsible for a company-wide quality training program. Okay. And the surrender part was that although I was making a whole lot of money, being a manager and managing people, and I could do that work, okay? The surrender part was that was not what I was here to do. And for me to give all that up, that's just like, just give all that up. And, I didn't get any help with giving up except from your mother. That's the only support. Nobody else supported. It says, no, it's a career. And I look at that happen at 32. That was the best decision that I've ever made. It transformed my life. It gave me a different perspective. Everything that I thought was true turned out to not be true. It was like the caterpillar turning into a butterfly. I got all these legs and the legs disappear. I got these wings. What the hell am I supposed to do with that? Everything is different. I'm on the ground now. I'm flying around in the garden. Everything is different. And that's 30 years ago. And it was the best, I'm so happy that I was, one, given an opportunity to have those experiences, and two, maybe stupid enough to just say, you know what, I'm just going to trust what is instinctively me and just take a risk. And I'm not suggesting anybody on this call do that. That's what happened to me. Because you asked me what happened to me. And part of that surrender is integration. I mean, I'm sorry to bring Kathy back in there. I don't know if she's going to see this call or not, but she was asking me about the various elements of my life. You know, I have my consulting practice. I have a not-for-profit that I'm involved with. I teach at 2 universities. And she says, well, you know, which one of those do you like? And I says, they're all integrated. They all feed on each other. You know, they're not separate. And in fact, I would assert that not only in my vocation, there's an integration, which is part of surrender. It's the integration part of the surrender process. I would assert that my conversations that I have with other people tends to lend itself to this whole notion about awakening oneself to love. Although I may not say that, that's what I'm always pointing towards. If I can be of assistance, if I can be a buoy in the lake, or a lighthouse in that respect, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. Well, I think, as you give your explanation, I'll quickly, because I know we're running out of time here, but I'll quickly give my surrender story. So my surrender story probably has to do with my mother. So when 2012, when that year happened, that was a lot of different things happened to me during that year. A lot of different things, some really good and some really bad.
Yeah.
And so at the last day of that year, my mom passed away. And so what that did was it was like a whirlwind of struggle and sacrifice, because essentially what I was trying to do was, I think a lot of our family members were trying to do that. Like, I mean, when you bring up death, I mean, that really, it really does shock you, because like you said, there's no going back to it. It doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how smart you are. You know, you have to kind of go through a process.
Can I interject this? Because you know, I mean, I love this conversation.
Sure.
Yeah, because my anthropologist comes out of me. Notice how, as a culture, we even deal with death. Just notice it as an anthropologist. If I came from Mars as an anthropologist, I would notice that we typically like people to just be laying out comfortably in a new suit in a casket. There's a whole psychology about that. That means they're not really gone. They're just asleep. Rest in peace. Okay? There's this whole thing about letting go that is hard for humans. Very hard to do. And we don't. I mean, the Egyptians did the same thing with the pyramids. You got to get ready for heaven or the other life, whatever. Okay? So just think about that. It's ingrained in our DNA almost. It's ingrained in our culture to have difficulty letting go of people, especially those we love, letting go of that. Yet that's the growth process.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and when it happened, you know, I remember a lot of different support. One of the values, I'm still trying to figure out my values, honestly, to be honest with you, I'm still trying to figure it out. I think I know it, but just putting a name to it, I think it's something that I've never done before. I just kind of assumed that I kind of knew it, but if you ask me, I would have to kind of think about it, which was a problem for me. So now I'm starting to put names to it. So one of the names that I'm putting to my value system is connection. And so when my mother passed away, your wife passed away, you know, people were connecting to me, you know, random people that I hadn't heard from for years were reaching out to me, or people that I didn't really talk to were connecting and saying, hey, sorry for, I mean, a lot of people had empathy for the situation, but the struggle part really didn't happen for me immediately after she passed away. The struggle part happened 2 months after she passed away, where people moved on and I wasn't ready to move on, you know? So I became very angry and very distant, you know, to the point where I I shut off the outside world and I just kind of stayed to myself with it because I wanted people to still be in mourning, and I didn't want to let go. I didn't want the world to move on.
The fear was letting go of that memory.
I wanted to mourn forever, huh?
That fear turned into anger because you didn't want to let that experience go. You wanted to experience it more so you can reconcile it in some way.
Right.
Okay.
So after processing it, and really, I mean, I had some support in processing that. I had my friends. I had my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife. But looking back at the sequence of events that occurred, the surrender part came where I essentially I was kind of left up to the wind of taking a lot of different risks, meaning that knowing that I don't know what next year has to bring. So whatever it is that I'm here to do, I better do it now and not pretend that I got 50 more years to kind of figure some stuff out. So that mindset, once I learned that, it started a mindset of a lot of different actions that I wouldn't have probably have done if she would have stayed alive. And it's kind of weird saying that because essentially what I'm saying is that there was some good that came in her passing away. However, I mean, there's no other way for me to say that. I mean, there was some good. For example, I made a decision shortly after that to get married. Knowing in my mind that, well, if this is a person that I love, I need to lock this down now and not wait until 4 or 5 years, which was probably my mindset before 2012, where I was like, well, I got time to figure this out. You know what I'm saying? Another thing that I did that I probably wouldn't have never done before she passed away, I started participating in a lot of financially and emotional risky behavior. For example, I went skydiving. I would have never went skydiving because of the fear of what could happen if that parachute didn't open. But at that time, my thought process is that this is something that could be fun. It could be a new experience. You know what I'm saying? Who knows if I'll do it again? Let's just try it and see what happens. Of course, there's some risk in it, just like there's risk in everything. But let's try it out and see what happens. And it was one of the most fun things that I ever experienced. You know what I'm saying? And the same thing with getting married. I mean, that's probably one of my top 5 best. Maybe I shouldn't say top 5. My wife is watching. Like, no, that's your best decision. But that was a very good decision for me personally because it was. I mean, there's a lot of fear attached, especially for guys, trying to get married and trying to lock yourself down. I remember having conversations with men saying, man, I mean, you're in for the drama, you're in for this, and she's going to be trying to do this, and you're not going to be able to do that. And none of those things came true. Those were all those individuals' fears trying to be projected onto me. None of those things came true. So now I'm in more of a risk-taking role as far as how I operate life. It doesn't mean I'm going to be doing any daredevil type stuff, but if it comes to something that I feel that I need to do, it's easier for me to pull the trigger knowing that, you only have a certain amount of time to do your things. You know what I'm saying? You only have everybody. I mean, yeah, she passed away in 2012. My time is coming up, whether it be next year, tomorrow, or 30 years from now. It's coming up. And so I need to be doing the things that I need to be doing to make the biggest impact, on this earth. So.
Yes. Great reflection. That is a super reflection that you have. That's great. That's really bona fide maturity, and you don't always get that because in some respects, as a culture, we kind of act like we're 13 in a lot of ways, and so that is that's the adult in the room, and life, has its way of pointing you toward love and going through struggle, sacrifice, suffering, and then surrendering to it or accepting into it or integrating into it are other words that you can use in the surrender part, is one way in which a person can experience more joy in their lives, more expansive in their lives, and operate from a bigger perspective than their colleagues and other people, and maybe have an influence on them for them to operate as well.
Yeah,
as a process.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, a lot of that. I mean, when you go through something like that, again, it's painful. No one. I mean, I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But I mean, that plays out in kind of this pandemic for me. You know, to me, going in before the pandemic happened, I knew that we had a finite. I mean, anything could happen. You know what I'm saying? Like no one's wishing anything bad, but that doesn't mean that something bad may not happen. And worrying about it isn't going to make it go away. It's just gonna happen. So you just kind of have to roll with the tides, like almost like you're on a surfboard. You can't control the wave. You just gotta ride with the wave. And so when this Corona thing happened, I've been kind of riding with the waves. Not to say that I like this. I mean, I'd rather go out with my friends, go to a bar and go out to a club, or go on vacation and do all these other things that we can't do due to this pandemic. But I'm more thankful for the things that I still currently have, even though something like this has happened, and there are people out there losing their lives and getting sick, and maybe possibly losing their drive. I like your example that you used, the trifecta, whereas you have the social unrest, and you have the economic factors, and then you have the health factors of this virus that's kind of helping. It's kind of hindering in 2020. A lot of people think 2020 is the worst year ever. I mean, to me, I don't feel that way. Not to say that it's the best year ever, but I don't feel that 2020 is like a hellish type of year. But it's definitely different, and it's definitely going to change. We're not going back to 2019 anymore, which is essentially what happens when you kind of go through this 4S committee. I feel like we're struggling to kind of get back to where we thought we should be at, and then we're slowly realizing like, oh no, this is not going to be the same.
Yeah, it's dead. We got it. What's going to be the rebirth? What's going to be brought forward? That's what that energizes me.
Right.
I'm
excited about
it. That is so exciting, and I know it's going to happen.
Right.
I just hope I'm around to experience it. I'm waiting for the new birth.
All right. Well, we will pause it right there for this week's talk. Thank you for your insights, Dr. Bowie. To the audience that's out there, those of you guys are listening online right now, or possibly listening into the future, please document your moments of surrender if you feel comfortable with it. If you don't want to do that and you just want to offer us some feedback or have some questions, either for Dr. Bowie or myself, please comment on our page. Please like our page, and please share our video, because we're at this moment we're wrapping up the 4S committee of surrender. Let me make sure I get it right. So we got surrender, we got struggle, sacrifice. And what am I missing, Dr. Bowie?
Okay, so you got the struggle, you got the sacrifice, you got the suffering, and you got the surrender.
Four and surrender, yes. So the four of them, yeah. So we spent a week to talk about each one of those individually, and we will probably in the future refer back and forth to those concepts so that people kind of know what we're talking about. But we'll move on to a different topic next week. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those questions should stop. If you have any questions about any of those essays and the processes that kind of transpire through that,
just by way of a cheap plug, we're going to be giving a workshop in September that's going to do a much deeper dive into the topic with other things to get you really engaged in it. So that's coming up. We'll probably make other announcements throughout the next month or so. But we plan on doing a virtual workshop.
Yeah.
to help people go deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that are interested in that, it's going to be like Dr. Booth says, it's going to be a virtual workshop, so you don't have to worry about having to get in front of people or anything like that. And that will take place in September. And if you are interested in that information, please like our page, because you'll be getting information through our page about when that's going to be conducted, and if you're interested, how to sign up for that. There are limited spaces to sign up for that, so if you are interested in that, once we start to advertise it, which will be coming up, please reach out to us and let us know that you're interested in that. Anything else, Dr. Bowie? Did I forget?
No, this is great, man. This is great. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Anything, any feedback anybody can give us and give myself in particular to make it better, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to awaken this whole audience to love.
Excellent. All right. Well, everybody have a great evening. Enjoy yourselves. Be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, we are done.